Hi everyone, welcome to join us from online to this AI debate for Singapore FinTech Festival AI Summit. So sorry about being late for today's schedule. Finally we are live, and I would like to start with introduction to today's four wonderful debaters. Let's let them to start. Go first.
Yes, I'm Edmund. I'm an advisor to inequality, and Manuel on my left is the founder and CEO.
Hi, my name is Manuel Hall. I'm the founder and CEO of Emo Technologies. Real pleasure to be here and looking forward to this debate.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Dimitri Voronenko, founder and CEO of Turnkey Lender.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alexis Schilling, Head of Sales at Turnkey Lender, and looking forward to this debate.
All right, thank you. So at the start, this is something special we did for debate. So before we have this session, actually they don't know which side they are going to debate for. We only have the topic. So they are going to do scissors, paper, stone to decide who will be the reps.
All right, we do now?
Yeah.
Okay.
1,
2, 3.
All right. So Emotech is the winner. So you will decide.
So we go first with the statement. Yeah.
No, you decide on the topic, right?
On the topic? No, the topic is being decided. Oh no, so
For
yes or no?
For yes or no.
Okay.
So yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So
Yes meaning.
click. So okay.
The yes or no is a yes that it will create bias, or yes it will not?
It's yes. AI will create.
Oh yeah. Okay. So we say no.
So you decide no. So yours, the Emotech stands for AI will not increase the inequality and the biases in financial services.
Correct.
So while the Turnkey Land, you are gonna say yes, AI will increase the inequality and biases. Okay. All right, I will go and distribute the notes for you. So you're gonna hold it. Can you pass around? When you are debating, to show the audience your side. All right, but
So we just hold here?
yeah, you can do that. But I think for Turnkey Land, you have the chance to decide who will start first.
Okay, the gentleman can start first.
Okay.
All right. So before you start, we will give you a few minutes to prepare. And I would like to probably give a short background about this topic to the audience. So why we're coming with this topic. I think there are a lot of things, discussions going on within the AI ecosystem to talk about the biases and inequality. So I remember this year I have a friend telling me she's trying to open an account with financial services. I think it's like investment something, but she's getting a very hard time. So for me, usually it takes half an hour to open an account through just mobile apps because there are all AI algorithms going on to check my background. But for her, it's always 7 days. And no matter what kind of financial services, it's always like that. So she feels like she's being biased against her. I don't know, maybe she did something, but I don't think she's some bad person or something. But it comes to her, it's always like 7 days. So she complained to me. So we're thinking whether it is fair to say, is it fair if we are running AI engines and then AI makes some certain decisions, it's actually discriminating certain customers in certain ways. So that's why we have today's topic. Now we shall move on to our first session, and so just now we decide Emotech will go first, and when I click start, so the first speaker from Emotech will start your statement. Okay. So
Do I take off my mask? Or?
you can take off your mask.
Okay.
Everyone keep your mask on. All right. Just give me a second. I'll start the timer. So you will have 3 minutes. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay, so thanks for giving us a chance to go first. So when it comes to talking about this topic, I think it's worthwhile just unpacking some of the issues that we are discussing here. So as you mentioned, you have a friend that had some issues opening a bank account, and also there's some really high-level stories, like for example, Apple credit cards. There was, reported a lot of bias against women in terms of granting credit limits. And there are a couple of things that were happening here. I think that one is obviously the bias that is built into AI inherently because of historical data about where you source that and how you curate that information, how you train the models. But then there's a second component, which is about accessibility. Right? As you know, sophisticated products or products that are usually managed by AI, they tend to be accessed by people that are familiar with digital tools and digital means, which means that all those people who don't have access to that or are not familiar to that, then they're going to left behind. So, there's obviously these conversations. We understand the concerns about that. But my opposition in terms of why this is not going to be a problem is because as long as we are aware of that, first of all, we can correct for that bias. The great thing about AI is that it's all codified, which means that obviously we can put weights and we can balance out all these algorithms. The second component, which is, I believe it's actually a bit more challenging, is really the accessibility of people who don't have the skills or knowledge to access these products. But one of the things that we are doing, for example, at Emo Technologies is essentially making AI much more accessible to users by using natural language processing. Which means that even if you're not familiar with specific names and products and you don't know how to express yourself pretty well, your AI is going to be able to understand your intent, and as a result is going to be able to give the best products, the most optimal products for you. And this is why we think that obviously we understand the concerns, but we are very optimistic about the future. Because AI brings huge benefits. It allows all this great knowledge, best practices to be spread out at scale, and obviously with the right type of governance and the right type of technologies, we'll be able to make this available to everyone. So that's my opening statement.
10 seconds.
It's okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I look forward to hearing the counter argument.
Great. Very good time management. Okay, let's listen from Turnkey Land. Who will go first?
Yeah, Turnkey Land.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, it's a pity we are saying yes and not no. Actually, I would gladly defend the other side, but it is what it is, and I will do my best to defend yes. And first of all, I would like to make a distinguishing point that one thing if we are speaking about the current state of affairs, and another thing if we are speaking about AGI, or so-called artificial generic intelligence, all right? And if we are speaking about current state of affairs, of course, humans can do something with this bias, yeah, that can be inherited from data or from actual state of affairs. But with generic intelligence, it will be intelligence, can be intelligence on its own, and it's a totally different topic. So I would concentrate on the current state of affairs, just for the sake of the discussion, right? And even as it is right now, I would defend that AI will bring more inequality in certain cases, yeah? First of all, because of capabilities of AI, it can analyze much more subtle data that human brain cannot pinpoint. For example, we specifically actually denied inside our own system an AI model to calculate or to use number of kids in African countries. So by number of kids, you can understand actually a lot about profile or even about race, actually about race. So you go to Kenya, you go to Nigeria, and it doesn't matter if it's a high educated, high income person or not, number of kids is like 5 on average, right? And you can very easily to define race or without actually using race as a input parameter. Or for example, the ratio between mother's age and the age of her first child also tells a lot about this particular person. And we have more and more. Right now, people are using mobile application data or mobile phone data, and there you have battery drain patterns, night calls, social networks, and stuff like that. And it can be so subtle that without even directly telling that I'm using race or I'm using gender, the AI will be able to do it. You will even forbid the AI to use number of kids, for example, or a gender, just by patterns using by this person, AI will be able to tell. And there we see that AI actually has no ethics as of now. Yeah, it can have certain rules. And by the way, a lot of investors and companies, they are working towards very ethical AI. But nevertheless, if the goal of AI is to increase productivity, even for the economy, it can be decided by AI that this is the best way to go, just to start with biased position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now it's
Yeah,
email text.
Pleased to participate in this debate, and I don't support the notion that AI brings about inequality or bias. And to my opposition party who thinks that AI brings about inequality, and he mentioned the fact about discrimination based on race and based on family size. I think that's because you have incomplete data being fed into the AI algorithm. The right way is to have complete data that is culturally agnostic as far as possible. So if you have the right kind of data to train your AI algorithm, I think you would eliminate bias a lot. A lot of the AI right now, nowadays, are being handled by people who do not know the inherent bias in the nature of AI. And I think AI algorithms should be run by people who understand this bias and specifically look out for the bias that may be thrown up by the AI model. I want to support Manuel's earlier supposition, which is that AI help democratizes the use of digital tools in society. Can you imagine without the rise of the smartphone, which is a mini AI machine, how will the unbanked in developing countries get access to financial tools, get access to banking, get access to financial resources? So the fact that everything right now is available with smartphones, and the fact that every person right now is able to be a smartphone user, the FinTech companies and banks are able to use this to reach out to a wider audience, not dependent upon branches anymore. So I think the case that AI is doing a lot of good is in the hands of banks who are responsible, who understand that the underserved, the people who are in the past are discriminated against because they are far away, or they are discriminated because they are not in an area that is served by a normal bank branch, now can be reached.
Thank you. You still have 20 seconds, but you made a very, very good point from the financial inclusion point of view. So now it's your turn.
Okay, thank you very much. It's interesting. A lot of interesting points were raised with my debaters, and I would like to build on it. When we're talking about AI as a capability to make decisions, if we take the assumption that we can obtain the perfect data, the complete data set, which is in real world is next to impossible. When we look at decision-making process for humans, we continuously battle to get more data, and even the executives, what they're good at is making the right decision, so as best decision as possible, based on the experience and expertise using the limited amount of data. And for that matter, we always have that imperfection and the risk that the decision may not be perfect. And with the time, the executives make the decisions usually better and better because of the expertise. So when we look at the artificial intelligence and how the artificial intelligence can make the best decision, it comes along with the rules that the artificial intelligence have to follow. And rules are set by humans. So if the human say the policy is actually to improve inequality, then the AI may optimize for that rule. If the rule says maximize for revenue or profits, yeah, I will make inequality rules. And when we look at how do we set the rules, unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, AIs are incapable of making their own rules. To the point of, because it's not only artificial intelligence, it's also artificial emotions need to come into play. To be not only empathetic to make a decision, and the machines today are not capable of making, they can sympathize based on mimicking the empathy, but they cannot actually feel it. And when we're looking at making the equality in a society, it does require more than just intelligence, which is working on optimizing the most efficient rules and execute those rules to achieve the result. So for that matter, when I look at it, we want to be the optimist in the world. At the same time, we understand that the machine can only be as effective as the humans build it, and humans by definition are not perfect, and the data sets are never they are going to be to the full respect of the full complete set. We can make perfect decision, and it's never going to be broken because in society how we put the laws together is based on social norms, and how's the AI is going to do it? Question mark. Thank you.
All right. Perfect. Now we come to having some interactions with the audience. I hope there are people watching us from online, so they can log into the Mentimeter, and they are gonna vote for, so far, which team is your favorite? We'll just hold on here for maybe a few minutes. You can probably take a short break. And then the next session will be 10 minutes free debate, where you guys do not remove your mask. But you guys, I will let Emotech start first. Okay? All right. Let's move on to the next session. Emotech, you can start.
Okay, so to be honest, I was just looking to build on some very interesting comments that were made, especially on the side of emotions, which is actually falls very much in line with what we're doing. So we are actually developing algorithms that are able to sense your sentiment, but not just your sentiment, but also your specific emotions: fear, anger, joy, happiness. We're also able to filter for sarcasm, And we're actually using it right now for to help charities also deal with all the troubled youth that they face with every day. And these are the type of things that we can build into data sets and help, obviously build better models that are more balanced, not just in terms of optimizing for specific tangible outcomes, but also emotional outcomes, right? And additionally, something that I mentioned before was about also sorting out the governance, so that it's not just CEOs looking for profit that are in charge of these models, but also people that represent society in general, right? And I think that events like this are really great because obviously it's opening up the debate, and as a result, it may lead to some changes in the way that we essentially are running these programs.
Yeah, I just want to reflect on this. So I totally agree. As soon as we understand that humans that guide AI are very ethical and have very best intentions in mind, we can do almost everything or close to perfect, right? But we understand that life is life, and we have our own society. Yeah, we have a very large concentration of data in certain hands, in certain companies, and even governments that can use it for their own, whatever they perceive to be good. And then corporations are fighting with each other, or governments are fighting with trade wars and some other stuff. They can use it for whatever they find good. And this is, we as a society cannot yet prevent, because right now our legislation system is on country level, where all this fight is happening on global level, and we cannot prevent it. So therefore AI will just serve these needs, and we can also understand that we have capitalism. Yeah, we have a lot of impact visionary investors who are doing it. We have CEOs, organizations, associations who are including this ethics, but we cannot rely on it. I understand that you, as other companies, they are trying to do their best, but AI is a tool. It's like a car, can be used for everything, right? Or like banking can be used to finance terrorists. Again, probably they don't know, or for some other stuff like pollution, or trees cutting, predatory ones, or can be used for hospitals and schools. And therefore, we have such a huge power of AI that we as a society cannot control. And those who are in possession of this data is already have so much data about us that it's mind-blowing. And a year ago, we had AI discussion in UK embassy, here also on FinTech Festival. And it was a big discussion about ethics and about medical data, and it can improve and cannot improve. And people were like, no, I will never give my data away and stuff like that. And then was a company representative who told, we are working with big corporations, and with help of AI, we can decrease the insurance payments, right? And then these big corporations just say, okay, you should agree, or we will not hire you. Obviously not that blatant, but in a way. And that's it. So it was like, wow, companies that have hundreds of thousands of people, they're already doing it. Nobody is even know about it. But they're already doing it because the spread and margin they're getting is enormous. And therefore AI will be tool for first and foremost for these people, and only after this for people who are actually trying to do good. And we don't know how to prevent it. This is the biggest threat of AI, because we as a society are not ready. We cannot even comprehend. So we are thinking in terms of usual models like age, number of kids. Sorry for these probably bad examples, yeah? And just a disclaimer, there was no discrimination in Africa. We found that it can be done so, right? But imagine there are thousands of variables. You cannot even understand how AI is doing it. And it's a very big topic, how to get what is the input importance. And for taxi drivers, it will be 1% of night calls, for students another one, and so on and so forth. And it's thousands. So human brain cannot even understand what is going on there, only like top performing indicators. And that's it. So we will have this inequality because our human brain cannot comprehend what is going on there. And as Alexei also correctly pointed, yeah, we will put like, do not discriminate by race, but AI will think it's not by race, it's by number of night calls. And like a mother of the baby does not sleep at night, and it will like, a person is not sleeping at night, and I'm not discriminating. And I'm telling that we cannot control it right now. Sorry, I'm playing my role. I'm playing my role in the debate.
Good one.
So I have a counterpoint to this. I think both of you are making that the fact that we live in a capitalist society where profits is supposed to be maximized, And therefore, the AI algorithm is pushing, for example, lending to a more select group that can actually pay. But I'm saying that the AI itself doesn't mean that you need to go that route to be more profitable. The fact that the AI allows you to reach a wider audience, you have more numbers. Because you have more financial inclusion, it's a multiplication of numbers times the profit that you make. Instead of making money from the few rich who can pay, you actually can make a lot more money from getting more people who can afford to pay when you give them a loan. The question is, currently the AI model that we have right now is so biased, is not able to differentiate that you need to lend maybe $10,000 to a middle income person, but you need to lend only $50 to the Nigerian woman who has 5 kids, who has a household income of maybe $300 a month. So the fact that the AI is able to help you identify the payment capability of that family with multiple kids, and you lend accordingly, the person doesn't default. And not only the person doesn't default, the person can pay. So at the end of the day, when you aggregate this up, the financial institution will earn more. So my point is that capitalism and AI actually can coexist for the good ethical AI to be in place.
I agree, as long as humans will be able to watch over it. So AI itself will inevitably go to inequality and bias to maximize profits, unless we will make the AI to do like this. And I totally agree that AI at this stage helps financial inclusion. Not only because of it, for example, this mobile scoring, we're able to do it. But we need to be conscious that it's still a certain kind of bias. So it's still biased. Certain people, on ethical reason, we want to give an equal opportunity to every woman, to every person. But AI actually already doing it. It's like democracy. Initially, it was only for wealthy citizens, then for all the men, then probably other, then women and other categories and other categories of certainly. The same is happening right now. We should be conscious to understand it's already discriminating, but probably this is the only path. So it's gathering more data, then it has less credit risk for this group, then it can extend a little bit more, then less credit risk for this group, then extend it, but we need to understand we are doing it. And our like philosophical approach is it should be equal, but with the help of AI, we are not making it equal. We are making it accessible, that's right. We are doing step-by-step financial inclusion, but it's still biased. And imagine these people who are not selected by AI right now. Why I am not as good as my neighbor, and it is a big pain, right? And we are doing it. So we are telling it like for economy, okay, it's like for companies. Let's initially give money to very successful companies, then we give less successful, and then we probably will help companies who are brink of extinction. But from ethical point of view, it's still biased.
Well, the flip side is this, right? The reason why a certain family with multiple children can't pay is whether they have the financial resources to pay, or maybe they do not think it's important to pay, or they may not have the necessary financial literacy to pay, right? Because at the end of the day, the financial services sector is an interaction between the lenders and the borrowers. And the borrowers need to be financially literate and financially disciplined enough to pay. And how do they get this financial education? With the democratization of AI, you can have financial literacy available to you on your mobile phone. So any mother with a child can have a smartphone that communicates to her in her own language as to how to discipline herself to save for repayment. That is only possible through AI. The use of the right language, NLP, in communicating, to the use of lessons in the right form, to an appropriate fashion to the mother to say, how do you save up to pay?
All right. time's up for the free debate session. That's really amazing from the two teams. So we are coming to the conclusion session. Just now, I think Emotech starts first, so we will have Turnkey Land to conclude first.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So you have 5 minutes.
Yep. First of all, thank you for the interesting discussion. So I would like to conclude that I totally agree that AI is bringing financial inclusion, and actually this is what we are doing in our company. That is probably I am defending the opposite side so much because we are constantly thinking how to prevent it. And we know many actually lending companies, they actually participate in these associations even when they have a capability to increase credit risk premium. They do not do it because they tell, okay, this is enough, it's just enough. And in spite of loan sharks charging like 300%, we still can charge 80 or 40, and it will be enough to cover our NPLs, right? Also, they are doing it deliberately, understanding that it's better to separate certain people. They still include them because they understand that portion of them will repay, they have more data, and so on and so forth. So overall, this is what AI is helping to do. But what I'm trying to say right now, we are very much underestimating the level of AI smartness already. So it's still far away to generic AI, very, very far away. But the amount of data AI is able to process, we are underestimating, and our society and legislation is actually lacking very much. So more and more people understanding this, but this is where we should work much more. So we have already bright scientists, we have already bright minds that are bringing financial inclusion, that are bringing this literacy of people, the right psychometric and other approaches to make it, but we are underestimating the level of AI is already capable of doing it. And in some cases even preventing. So it's what people name like data warehouse wall. As was pointed out also, so the certain data is gathered, and once it's gathered this way, then AI is like, yeah, it is what it is. What can I do? So they will not be able to pay. Just give them grants, no loans anymore, and this will not be true. How to break this? We are not working on it. And in many places, these walls are building up through these data sets. And actually, it's like a vicious circle. And we need to think more. Yeah, while we are expanding, it's like Wild West. While we still have where to expand, we are doing this way. We are just financial inclusion. But we are not noticing that we are building these walls for other people. And when we will reach market saturation, then we have so much things to do, and probably it will be too late. We need to think already right now to make as much as possible, not only very simplistic approach that was working in past, like gender, age, and stuff like that, but much more deliberate approach. And this is where we should work together as a society and to bring our economies to new heights and do it right. Thank you.
2 more minutes? No more?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
All right. Now, it's Emotech's turn to conclude.
So first of all, congratulations to our opposing team. I think that they were in a tough position and they've done a good job in terms of making their points. I mean, from all sides, I think this was a really great conversation in the sense that we do realize that the pitfalls of AI. But I think that from this debate, we were able to also highlight why we are, I guess not just we as Emotech Technologies, but also our opposing team, that we are actually optimistic about the good side, the upside of AI. Now, there are obviously a couple of things that need to be done, and this is what I would like to highlight. So first thing is, as Ed mentioned, accessibility, smartphones, but also the way that you communicate, the language that you use with segments of the population who don't have the sophistication to access not even AI, actually the simple products, right? And this is what I think that AI is going to make a big difference, because it's going to really reduce the cost to serve, and will make it possible to essentially include so many more people, not just over here in Singapore, but across the entire world, especially in the developing world. The second thing that we also touched is the thing about the motivation, it's at the end of the day, AI is a tool. So it's really about what rules we set and what the incentives we as humans and in a capitalist societies, what incentives we have in order to do that. And I think that one of the things that really brings us a lot of optimism in terms of the state of affairs is that it's true that large corporations, they want to maximize their own profits, but at the same time, there's a huge movement in terms of startups like ours who have very strong incentives to go after markets that are not currently served by large institutions. And I think that this is something that's going to make a big difference. As startups, not ours, but a lot of them that I see out there in the world, they're really going after these underserved populations. And with the tools that we have right now, I think that we will be successful in achieving that. Okay.
Nice. You still have 2 minutes. Yeah. So that's the conclusion of our.
A couple of words.
Okay, you have a couple of words.
So
Go ahead.
It's 3 words I would like to conclude on why the artificial intelligence is still not going to be perfect, because it's in conflict with itself by definition. I would like to mention three things: consumption, luck, and happiness. If we take equal amount of families with number of children, all things being equal, what makes one person happy may not make the other person happy. Somebody's happy with the tap water, somebody needs a sparkling water from Pyrenees. And artificial intelligence will need to distribute finances based on equality, meaning that the artificial intelligence will need to issue probably bigger loan to a person who drinks sparkling water rather than the one who drinks tap water, to keep them equally happy. And that creates the consumption issue, because everyone consumes different amount. And that by itself, the artificial intelligence will make inequality within society, because that will try to improve the happiness level, but will not be able to measure for luck and the consumption styles.
What I'm saying is this, there is a point that you're making that it improves the exaggerations in inequality. I'm saying if your artificial intelligence is good enough, it can be customized. The fact that artificial intelligence is breaking into very efficiently, very quickly, very complex tasks of customization before. Now you can have mass customization. So all of us may have 3 children, but the artificial intelligence will know that me, with my 3 children, will have very different needs from me, from Manuel, from you and him. And if the right artificial intelligence is to be applied, then they will provide the right products and services to meet my needs. So it should not be a artificial intelligence that is faceless and nameless. A true, really good artificial intelligence, maybe in the future of AGI, whereby then the product and the services are customized to your need and to your capability in the financial services to repay. Because at the end of the day, an unpaying and a person who cannot pay cannot be a happy customer. So actually, the ultimate aim of AI is to empower you to live a lifestyle that you can afford and that you can enjoy. And that is the true aim of artificial intelligence, right?
All right. Any final thoughts or points to make before we conclude the session? No?
We can carry on for another hour.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, it comes to the end of our first AI debate. I would like to thank everyone to join and watching us from online. So there's a Mentimeter session going on as well. So if you're watching the playback, you can also join the session to vote for these 2 teams who you would like to support more. You could also express your thoughts joining from our online debate and typing your points via our the website. So that's all for our first session. We have more sessions coming. So we'll see you later. Take a short break. All right.
Welcome back to our second session of the AI debate today. So this session, our topic is, will AI transform the business model of banking and finance? Today we are having two teams. One is from Silo AI, the other team is from FinTech. First, let's have a round of introduction. I think Andy is from Silasol is starting from overseas. So we'll start from maybe from the ladies. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Farah. I'm from FinTech Technologies, a Singapore headquartered FinTech focused in the commodities sector. And I'm happy to be part of the debate today.
Hi, I'm Pascal Bakia, a communications associate with FinTech Technologies, and I'm honored to be part of this debate today.
I think let's go with Andy first.
Let's go with Andy first.
Hello everyone, my name is Andy. I'm the CEO of Silot. We are a Singapore-based AI company providing a decision engine to banks. And Jiang Gan is my teammate. He is the CEO of Momentum Works, which is a venture builder in Southeast Asia. And we are drawing him to participate for this debate.
Oh yeah, maybe just add a few things. Andy and I share the same surname, Lee, but that's the family of like 100 million people in China, so I have no relation with him, but we've been friends since like 2015. Me, I used to run local internet companies in Southeast Asia, but for the past
our AI debate session. First of all, I think the team don't know which side they are going to debate for. That's the one of the interesting points that we are hosting. They know the topic, but they don't know what side. So they will decide which side they are going to debate for now through the scissors, paper, stone. So who will be the representative? From maybe two of you.
Yeah.
Let's do.
Yeah. Okay. So first to three, right?
Well, yeah. Okay, the ladies win.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the winner will decide which side you are going to debate for. So the statement is, will AI change the business model of banking and finance?
Thanks, Danielle, for that. As an intellectual challenge, we will pick the opposition of AI does not change the business model of finance and banking, and to be nice.
So your is no.
No.
Yes.
No.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes. Andy, you're going to say that
AI will change the business model of banking and finance. For the loser, you could choose who can, loser of the scissors, paper, stone. Not a debate session. You will choose who will start first.
I think,
which team will start first? It's your choice.
I think let me start first.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I'll let my colleagues start first. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you will have 3 minutes to establish your statement. After that, it will be Silot AI terms to, so who will go first, Andy or Andy? So Andy, you will go second, and then followed by you, and then, okay. So let's start. I will start my timer. All right, 3 minutes. Go.
Cool. Thank you for having us here today. So I'd first like to start off by setting some terms for the debate in that we like to keep it to
up to 5 years of time for this discussion, not something that's like a century from now. So, and also like AI in terms of like narrow intelligence, not like super intelligence AI, just what we have right now in time. So I think something we like to do is define what business model really means. And there's lots of dictionary definitions, but they're just not robust enough. So I'd like to turn to Peter Drucker, who was a consultant and the founder of modern management. And in 1994, he wrote The Theory of Business, and he defined business model as assumptions about what a company gets paid for. And if you take this in a more modern context, you can look at Michael Lewis, the financial journalist and renowned author, and he defines business models succinctly as really how you plan to make money. So for the opposition, we like to disprove the point that AI will change business models of banking and finance by proving to you that AI do not possess the discretion necessary to make these decisions, because that discretion is only possessed by professionals who have the education and the experience and the nuance to actually make such big life-altering decisions that affect like thousands of people and companies. So our first part of contention is that AI might be beneficial, actually undoubtedly is beneficial to like sifting through data, collecting large amounts and organizing it, but it does not have decision-making power, and it should not. Undoubtedly, AI is generating large amount of money, and McKinsey actually estimates that it could potentially deliver up to US $1 trillion additional dollars in a year in global banking. That's a lot of money. But BCG also says that AI is changing how trading is happening, in that they're deploying algorithms and deciding what to invest and divest in commodities. But at the end of the day, a manager still has to make the decision. He has to accept or decline the trade. It's still deferred to a human to make that discretionary choice. So why is this so? Because AIs don't have the power or like the intellectual nuance to actually do any meta-analysis of their own data, in that an AI can do things, but I can't tell you why it's done these things. Gardner says that AI augmentation, which is a comprehensive and synergetic partnership between a person and the AI, is the way forward and will generate 2.9 trillion US dollars in business value and 6.2 hours of worker productivity, 6.2 billion hours. So what we like to say is that though AI is great at sifting through data and like processing at speeds that humans just cannot, it can't make any decisions. And you can look to the example of in 1996, IBM's AI Deep Blue beat the chess master Gary Kasparov, I hope I pronounced that right. And it was a life-altering event, and no one could explain why. So that's why AIs can't make the decisions to change business models. Thank you.
All right, time's up. Now it's, I think it's Andy's turn. Hello, Andy, you ready?
Hello, everyone. I'm thinking on AI is a new productivity to enable a lot of infrastructures in this society. Just like last digitalization era, ATM machine is a new product which is providing a lot of benefit for the banking side. So users able to withdraw money or checking on the statement, doing a lot of activities based on this new product come out, and with some digitalization initiatives. And nowadays, definitely AI is a purely new generation of the technology evolution. So I have a strong belief that AI providing infrastructures, and those infrastructure actually start to enable a lot of business. For example, like eKYC, or maybe some of the transaction fraud detections. So for example, in US and China, there are several AI companies already going public. And a lot of new business models. Every time I visit China, I see the digital payment, mobile payment, and also a lot of places scan the face. Even for that ATM machine nowadays, able to issue in the cards in real time. So a lot of behind technology actually supporting on that. We couldn't directly defining on how is the direct contribution in numbers of the capitalization, but we can defining that as an infrastructure which is a necessary elements to enable a lot of business model happening. I think this is the right thing. And in 5 years, definitely, I think we couldn't undervalue that the every years going on, and we couldn't overestimate every like 3 years or maybe 5 years. But in a reasonable time period, I believe the regulators and the banking side, financial institutions definitely will get a lot of benefits rely on the AI technology. For example, the banks start to reduce the branch based on some of the technology already start to replace the human face-to-face talk. And a lot of software which is providing much more efficiency way to processing a lot of business flows. So in terms of the defining of FinTech, definitely improving the efficiency and lower down the cost is one initiative. Another one is relocation the resources from the low efficiency to high efficiency financial entities. So I believe AI participates in both ways, and they are start to replacing the human effort and human decisions, or maybe human activities in certain way. So that's definitely defining on how can AI start to restructure and rebuild the bank's product and the bank's business models.
Is that all? Are you okay. And you still have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Okay. Okay.
I think fine. So
yeah.
are you? I think okay. We'll listen to you later. Maybe we continue
sure.
with the next person.
Okay. So it's me.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm on the AI does not change the business model of finance and banking. What Andy has said is interesting and true to a lot of extents. For example, the efficiencies that AI actually bring in terms of analyzing large amounts of data, and even reducing, say, for example, the number of bank branches, and it obviously has, the potential to help companies, reduce costs, for example. But if we go back to first principles of business model itself, it's what companies get paid for. So in this case, if I'm a bank and I'm trying to disburse loans at a competitive rate to eat market share of my other banks, I would want to provide a rate that is relevant. I would want to make sure that the people I'm loaning to are actually credit worthy and will pay me back. So there's a distinction between the business model and competitive strategy. So our view is that AI actually falls under competitive strategy. It's what facilitates, it's what allows people to, say, get ahead of their competitors, and it's not the business model, which is what you get paid for. So ultimately, that is the differentiating point that we're making. Yeah. I can say more? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I've got 2 minutes more. Right? And then furthermore, I think the second point that I'd like to make is that humans, be it entrepreneurs, be it regulators, policymakers, and some of us in the room, are the ones to be changing the business model, right? Especially in banking and finance. As I think the previous team also said earlier, that the policies right now are still at a nascent stage. There's a lot of room to grow, and those decisions will be made by a combination of factors and should not be made by AI and will not be made by AI. So humans need to be careful to concede the power here. And just to give an example of a company, Square, right? They started off as a startup, now they're a $1 billion company. So Jim McKelvey has said in his book that when Square was attacked by Amazon, right? Amazon reduced its price by 30% because they could. Square, which is a payments company, was wondering, how do I beat Amazon? They actually focused on their innovation stack, which was not AI, but it was actually onboarding of client processes, for example. Customer support, a human touch was very unique and very important. And therefore, they just continued on that strategy, did nothing, and short story, they won. They beat Amazon by focusing on customer service, on the human aspect. 40 seconds more. Thank you. Thank you, I'll let you speak.
Thank you. So we go for the next.
Yep. I think I'll be quick. Just a few quick points to make. First, I think that the ladies have very nicely defined business model in two different ways. And I think if we look at the debate topic with change banking and finance, it's actually quite broad, right? The whole industry, which includes players, such as banks, financial institutions, but also the whole ecosystem of companies, serving them, building them, or sort of giving this similar services to the masses. So I think in that regard, as Andy mentioned, so I'm from China. Before COVID, I used to go back once every 2 to 3 months, and almost every time you see new business models coming around FinTech, but also because, of course, infrastructure is maturing, data has been hacked, and people see new possibilities. We've worked with some senior people and financial to build business in Indonesia, and along the way we learned that lots of new possibilities and new business models, new ways to make money, are because now they have the data, and the algorithms are becoming more accessible. So many things become possible. So new business models, in addition to traditional, having a branch, earning the interest spread or any transaction fee. So this is the first point. The second point is that so it was before COVID, and I've been stuck in Singapore for almost a year. Before COVID, I spent more than half of my time in Indonesia and other emerging markets. So I think we're dealing with, and what we see here in Singapore is very different from what we have seen in Indonesia. And last year I spent some time in the Middle East, UAE and Saudi Arabia, and the issues there are different as well. So I do think that so more possibilities, like Andy said, KYC. KYC was not a large issue in China, and it was not a large issue in China. It's not a big issue in Singapore, but in Indonesia and in part of the Middle East, it's a huge issue. So more business models are enabled to solve these issues and give financial services to people. And you sort of get the feeling that the big companies, the big internet companies, they're all becoming part of the financial ecosystem because they do provide goods and of course the financing service on top of that. And I think you guys know this very well. So that enables quite a bit of possibilities. And the third point is I know the ladies have put a very nice 5-year time frame. So we have a habit internally that we predict what's going to happen next year at this month. For us, it's very hard to predict 5 years down the road. So that, very quick, just one example. I think I had a home break. So
last line.
Visual AI first recognition we said that was not good enough for a long time, but once you reach like 95-99% accuracy is usable. And I think lots of people have technologies for 85-90% accuracy and soon become revolutionary.
All right, thank you. So we're now taking a very short break for about 1 minute so that audience watching from online, you could, if you're joining us from Mentimeter, you could log in to our session and start voting for which team you're supporting now. So we'll just take a 1 minute break here. And then we are going to have the free debate session, which lasts for 10 minutes. So you guys can freely talking and just don't fight, but you can, freely. And Andy, yes, you could also join the conversation. Okay, so we come back to continue our free debate session. He loves talk. You could start first. It will be 10 minutes, and debater will be debating freely.
So I think the competition has made some very good points about how AI is, making lots of breakthroughs in terms of dealing with customers and efficiency, and of course gathering data and processing data. But I feel like that's not really the issue at hand, because that's a fact. Like, we have statistics, we have the numbers to show that, and there's no disagreement between the two teams about this. What we're saying is that no matter how smart an AI is and no matter how much data it has, it just does not have the critical thinking needed to change any kind of business model, because that critical thinking is gained by a human going through life's experiences, so their education, their qualifications, interactions with their peers. Yes, AI is great at fraud detection, but a manager has the intuition and the nuance to actually, see a person applying for a loan and be like, hey, something about this person is a bit off. And AI can't do that. It can check the documents and everything, but at the end of the day, it can never replicate a human's intuition or gut feeling. And I think that's critical in making key decisions, especially, business plans and models that affect, an entire company, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. So we cannot give AI that kind of power or responsibility, because, I asked the proposition, and everyone else watching, would you really truly give an AI like true ultimate decision-making power to run your business? Thank you.
Oh.
We can speak now, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe speaking.
Andy is speaking.
Okay, so first of all, I'm thinking AI definitely couldn't make a business model by AI itself. But first of all, AI start to making a AI assistant to enable a lot of business model, which is from impossible become possible. So that can be true. So for example, a lot of country, the IT infrastructure, data infrastructure is very established, but there are a lot of developing country, lack of data, lack of verifications. So during human make decisions, definitely there are a lot of risk, and the human couldn't rely on the limited data to making decisions. But AI definitely gathering a much more a wider data set, and based on the historical data analyze, and giving some of the predictions on how possible is this happened. And definitely that will be a surplus based on the humans potential mistakes. And in order to doing further, AI definitely start to learn based on the pattern and the behaviors, and AI start to making decisions after a while. So a lot of business model, once we can reduce the cost, and that will become possible. For example, like SME lendings. Banking side is very active on the corporate lending based on the financial report and a large amount of numbers. But for small merchants like Warung in Indonesia, they only lending, let's say, $100. So the banking, first of all, not worth to do the human processing, but if they increase the client numbers with a lower amount, definitely their risk will be can be secured. But AI is a tool, and to reduce this cost, to make impossible become possible. And other than this, AI also happening to help a lot of industry partners who partner with the banks to directly making like open banking API, or maybe some of the banking decisions, which is a fast response compared with a 2 to 3 days response, to making a much more business model happening. I think that's the really use case for AI itself. But if you are talking about AI start to like a driverless car and making automatic driving and parking, so it's not really possible, because of financial sector is a highly regulated business, and people rely on the trust. So rely on how you're making the decision and how does this AI results. So I think from a little to a little, and the banking adopting AI, there are a lot of banks already adopt AI solutions. So I believe these solutions is like an infrastructure slightly enable other business. So I think that's my point.
With respect to that, I'd like to highlight three key points, right? So innovation itself, in terms of improvement, actually has happened way before the AI era, right? So if you look at, say, Rolls-Royce, they were the first to innovate in terms of the business model. How were they charging the airlines? Instead of buying the product itself, the engine, they innovated in a way by saying, okay, I will sell you as a service. So they were actually the first company to start off. They were the original software as a service, is what we know today as SaaS. And secondly, I think, especially as you pointed out that, in the banking and finance sector is very regulated. So don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. And, especially after 2010, where they had the flash crash, where, $1 trillion was lost in one day because of algorithms. I think there needs to be protection around it. There needs to be some policy around it. And in the same way, for example, IMO 2020, which is very much part of the shipping regulation, that only happened after everybody on the value chain agreed so. And therefore, our stand is that it is not just AI that will change the business model, and AI does not change the business model specifically in finance and banking. And the third one, I'd like to give an example of, what is the purpose of, say, a company? Yes, in the capitalist point of view, I'm here to make money in the best way possible. And just take example of Robinhood. That's an online brokerage which is for free, and they allow trading for free. They want customers to come on. They want more users. And I think you pointed out, AI helping to lower the cost of acquisition of customers, for example, and reach, say, the new investors, the millennials who previously were not having access to the stock market. So, but ultimately what they do is that they still earn from, say, payment for order flow. So that is not the AI changing the business model. That's them probably allowing them to actually, get access to new types of investors who are not there. And that's a competitive strategy rather than the business model. Thank you.
Just a few minor points. Hopefully this time I don't go too long. First, you mentioned about algorithms causing problems. I think over history we see probably more cases of human traders causing problems, and sometimes it takes a while to detect, and things go way ahead. I mean, you all remember the stories, right? So, and second, I think somebody mentioned about rely on humans' gut to make decisions, and I think if I am the I don't know. I mean, even above the regulators, if I'm, say, the leadership of a country, and I want everything to be stable, I want things to grow, I want the economy to be growing, I'm not sure if I want to trust the gut of the people who make a decision. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is that you mentioned about innovation, which happened way before AI, and the first SaaS companies, etc. I think lots of the business models have not been exactly static. If you look at insurance companies, and many insurance companies do not make money from general insurance because they use that to acquire users for life insurance. So I think some of the internet companies, some of the sort of AI-driven companies are using the same methodology. So this shift or change, whatever, is happening constantly. So it's just we notice that differently. And the last point I want to make here is that what is AI? I had this great debate with a very good friend of mine in Beijing about 2 years ago. He's the tech co-founder of one of the largest
but one of the most painful AI companies because they deal with like so many different use cases. And what he told me is that never forget that AI stands for artificial intelligence, and it starts with artificial. So humans are always part of it. Yeah, that's my point.
There's still time. Any points you want to tackle? We haven't finished our free, but it's okay. Time's up. All right, so now it comes to the end of the debate. So we will have the conclusion session. So who starts first will conclude last. So I think we will start with. Do you want to go or Andy?
I can go first. So actually, the point I mentioned about artificial intelligence, starting with artificial, that was already in a way
a conclusion. Maybe one more point I want to draw is that when people look at a sector, and sometimes people misinterpret the sector as the players in the sector. So when we say that AI can change things, and I think yesterday I was talking with some friends about this, and they were saying that AI companies, but we're not talking about AI companies. I think the more mature AI becomes, the harder it is for AI companies because lots of things are getting commoditized. So we are seeing a sector where technology is maturing, and when will each different set of technologies reach inflection point? People say that, previously I don't trust it, it couldn't be used. Now it's usable. So you never know, and because sometimes, how you describe it? So things are changing until one point they say, wow, okay, it becomes something totally different. So this is something that we have to bear in mind, and incrementally, we see that certain things that nobody talks about anymore, probably because the massive adoption is happening, and people don't need to talk about it anymore. So that's what I have to say. Yeah.
Andy, do you want to say something? Because you still have some time, 3 minutes. Okay, so I think we will continue with from Helix Top to conclude.
I think the proposition has made some very good points about how, when you have new innovation technologies, there's an inflection point about where you don't trust something, and then you, as a consensus in society, accept something as norm, like mobile phones. We're growing up, we didn't have smartphones, and now everyone has a smartphone. It's just normal. But I think the debate has become a bit about philosophy and ethics, because now we're talking about deferring power to AI. And like our opponent has said, AI, the beginning of AI is artificial. It's not true intelligence. It's not an intelligent being. And also it's a commodified entity. It's something we can buy. So I personally think, and I think my partner agrees with me, that you can't trust an AI in that sense to make decisions that affect the unparalleled processing power, unparalleled data collection, everything, efficiency. That's why humans are being replaced. But the jobs that are being taken over by AI are nuance or decision-making in that sense. They're more like back-end work or like blue-collar work that's laborious, of course. But when it comes to making key decisions, AI is just negligible in that sense. And if you take a more philosophical stance, because we're talking about the trust to for the world, and is only as good as its creator. In the same way that we humans were made in the image of our creator, be it a God or Mother Nature, and AI reflects its program biases, intentions, and there's no one programmer or even collective of programmers who can amass the qualifications, the experience, the education of actual business leaders and key decision makers in banking and finance, or keeping the industry afloat, because at the end of the day, a human touch is a human touch. AI can ever and should ever replicate that ethically, philosophically, morally. That's something we should keep to people who actually care and know what they're doing. Thank you.
I can add to that, right? So I think what we're doing is segmenting different areas of it, right? So and we go back to the first opening statement of the discretion. So the intentions of the person we don't know, but the fact is, if I am at a CEO level, or if I am at a policymaker, government regulator, or politician, I am put in charge. Yes, I may use certain tools. That tools may change, depending on what's important. Be it the advent of the internet, now AI. So all of these actually function together to help me, to assist me make my decision. In the same way, if I narrow it down to say, a private wealth manager or a M&A banker, if I'm doing a $2 billion deal, there are certain nuances that I will be able to pick up. Yes, I may look at cap IQ. Yes, I may look at huge data sets, but there are certain things that, based on my 20 years experience, for example, or based on my understanding of cultural nuances, those are things which will be able to make me close the deal, which ultimately, again, goes back to first principle. Why does the business exist? The business exists to serve customers. And and a statistic is 89% of businesses will compete based on customer experience, and also customers generally 86% find AI chatbots annoying. That may eventually improve in the future, but that doesn't change the fact that ultimately, if I'm a private banker and I'm trying to get a high net worth to invest with me, I need to be able to, not shoot him to the chatbot, right? So I may be able to qualify people, but ultimately, as a bank, I would like to serve my customers in the best way forward, and embed that trust. Thank you.
So that's you still have 1 more minute. If that's, I'm not sure whether anyone from the panel has any final points to make.
I think it was a good discussion. I think everybody had
All right.
valid points. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so for audience watching us from online or you're watching playback, you could join the Mentimeter session. We were releasing the code from in the social media. So when you watch the playback, you could vote for your favorite team there. Thank you for watching us. And we will come back in the afternoon for another 2 great debate sessions. Thank you. Okay.